Well, the Pittsburgh Penguins drop a tough one on Wednesday night to the Buffalo Sabres, a 4-3 shootout loss. They get a point, so 3 out of 4 points for the Penguins in their last two games. And up to 88 points on the season, 2 more away from being at 90, which, they're basically, at this point, six wins away from getting to 100 points, which would just be awesome. I have a full game recap coming up right for you all after the stop. Going to go into all of the struggles that came tonight for the Penguins and, honestly, why I thought that was the case. Chris Letang's goal, Evgeny Malkin's goal, Sidney Crosby's goal, Casey DeSmith's play, all of that and much more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. You're going to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes, all the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So Penguins, they drop a tough one tonight, 4-3 to the Sabres in a game that, honestly, 5 minutes into the game, the vibes were definitely not there, to say the least. This was a game that, it was a typical mid to late March game against one of the worst teams in the league, and you're already in the playoffs. You won against a team that's in ninth place the night before, and you're basically like, you know what? We're probably going to save ourselves for Friday in New York. I'm pretty sure they did. We're not going to bring our best effort. I know the players are going to say, well, we got to bring our best effort every game. We left points out there and all that. They're 2 points back from Carolina right now when it could have been 1. But at the end of the day, every team in the NHL has a game like this. Multiple, I should say, where you just don't have it. And the fact that the Penguins even got to overtime and then a shootout when they didn't have it, that just goes to show how good this team is. And even on nights that they don't have it, they can still score, especially when the big guns do. All three of the main core players scored tonight. And according to Bob Grove, this was the first time, I believe, in the Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang era that all three have scored in the same game and they've lost. It just does not happen very often. Hell, when Sid and Gino score in the same game, they have, I believe it's less than 5 regulation losses, only a couple of overtime losses. Obviously, this one will qualify. It is very rare when both of them score in the same game and the Penguins lose. So definitely a lot of rare feats tonight. But, again, this was a game where the Penguins did not have it. At the end of the day, they didn't bring their best hockey. They played much better on the night before against Columbus, and I understand that. It's a divisional game. It's against a team that, it's kind of your little brother in a way. It's a Metropolitan Division game, and now you go from there to less than 24 hours later, you're playing a Buffalo Sabres team that's really playing for pride at this point, even though they're now 5-1 in their last 6 games. This has been definitely a better season for the Sabres. I know they're not that good, but, compared to last year with where they were, especially when Ralph Kruger was their coach of the team, Don Granato definitely has those guys ready to play on an every night basis. So I thought Buffalo looked pretty good. They were obviously they had more rest coming in this game, but I'm not going to take anything away from the Penguins. I thought, even though they played like crap, they had multiple chances to win it in the overtime, and they still got the point to be up 8 points up on the Capitals with the same game. So 17 games to go between those two teams. It's going to be very hard for Washington to move up. I actually saw this stat. When I was looking at the stand, someone posted this on Twitter, I think. It was about mid-February, about February 12th, February 13th. We're now at March 23rd. Penguins had played 49 games. Capitals have played 50. Now we're both at 65. So Capitals played 15, Penguins have played 16. The gap has gone up by 1 point. The Capitals were 7 points back about 5 weeks ago. They're now 8 points back with only basically 5 weeks left in the season. That is how hard it is to catch a team like that in the standings. So right now, again, the Penguins it's most likely they're going to be locked into the 2-3, unless they have this, this monumental collapse with 17 games up. I'm going to knock on wood for you all. I thought, how do I want to say this? Against probably any other team in the league, hell, maybe even Arizona, the Penguins probably lose this game in regulation. Heck, with how Montreal is playing lately, I think Montreal probably beats them in regulation. Arizona, maybe they're good enough to get to overtime, but it was just that was how bad the Penguins play. This was probably their worst performance, 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. I cannot remember a time, in a while where they looked this flat, and this lethargic. But they're saving themselves. The schedule coming up is about to get really nasty. They have the Rangers 3 times in basically 2 weeks. Colorado twice, Minnesota, Boston twice. It's just these games are only going to get tougher down the stretch. So I really have no problem with them dropping a point. Sidney Crosby was able to get the tying goal right after Penguins killer Tage Thompson opens the scoring. And I mean, Tage Thompson's approaching Jordan Eberle territory at this point. This guy scores at will against the Penguins. Had 2 goals against them tonight. Goals 26 and 27 for him on the season. He scored against them a bunch last season. I'm pretty sure in one of the 2 games this year, he also scored against them. He is a Penguins killer right now. Just no matter what they do, they can't seem to stop him. But Sid, just a few seconds after that first goal, is able to tie it, goes 5-hole. He is playing some really high-level hockey right now. That's now 6 points in his last 3 games. He now has 1,390 points. Actually, I'll rephrase that. 1,391. I'm going to get to the other goal in just a second. He is now 5 points back of Alex Ovechkin. He's 24th all-time with Brett Hull for the most points in NHL history, 9 away from 1,400. So congratulations to Sid. He's probably going to hit 1,400 probably in the next few games, to be honest. That's going to be a great milestone. He'll probably hit 1,500, if not next season, the season after that, which is just going to be an even better accomplishment at this point. Evgeny Malkin gets the Penguins some puck luck. That was awesome. I mean, I even tweeted that out on my social media. It is very rare when the Penguins get a bounce the way they did with that Gino goal. He just, it's a harmless puck to the front of the net, goes off of Yoki Haru's skate, goes 5-hole past Anderson. I think that's the first time the Penguins have scored a goal like that this year. They probably had it scored against them about 4 to 5 times, but the Penguins have definitely, they have not gotten that kind of bounce, to say the least. So the fact that they did, that was nice. The Penguins were being outplayed in that second period, just like they were the entire game. That goal came with about a little less than 90 seconds left in that period. So to be tied going into the second, that's massive. Obviously, Tage Thompson scores again, but Crystal Tang is able to tie it and get the Penguins at least a point. Shout out to Mike Sullivan for that timeout. That is a Jack Adams worthy timeout right there. I thought that was tremendous. He saw there was an opportunity because they were getting a lot of chances. He knew it was late in the game. He also knew that they were probably not going to get another power play after this, but you know what? He made that good play, called the timeouts, a 200 IQ play, as I like to say sometimes on the podcast, puts the first unit back out there, set play, Crystal Tang's able to bury it, Todd Reardon goes absolutely crazy on the bench, like Mike Matheson's almost like punching him and something like that. Really nice to see him and the rest of the team fired up because that I thought was a great coaching moment from Mike Sullivan, to say the least. So obviously, we're going to get to the overtime coming up in the next segment. Those are the goals that were scored. One of them was obviously a bit lucky. The first one was just a nice shot 5-hole. And then, the other one, Crystal Tang, no chance. It was the power play has been struggling a lot lately, but the power play was also the main reason that the Penguins got at least a point in this game. So that's big, especially because the power play has been in like a 1 for 21, 1 for 22 drought before this game and before last night as well. So that was just really huge, I think, for the Penguins. Also for Evgeny Malkin's goal, 13th goal already in the season. He's only played 2.5 months. He's already equaled Danton Heinen's goal number. I know Heinen's been, pretty good this year, but this is one of the best players in the league in Evgeny Malkin. But still a lot to get to for this episode, including the defensive, inefficiencies that we saw throughout the night. Casey DeSmith's performance, and who I thought regressed from last night. But before we get to that, with HelloFresh, You get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh delivers pre-portioned ingredients to your door, including farm fresh produce that arrives within a week. Again, you can skip the trip to the grocery store, saving you the wait and long lines and ensuring you don't waste your money on excess food. HelloFresh has fit and wholesome recipes for satisfying and nutritious meals so that you can feel good about with maybe 6 recipes per week to choose from, including low-calorie and carb-conscious options. So my girlfriend and I, we've actually used HelloFresh quite a few times. We actually really like the portions. The recipes are a lot of fun to use. Heck, we actually end up saving the recipes too. So we can keep, go to the, if we don't want to have HelloFresh for a week, we can just, hook up one of the recipes that we got from them and just go to the store, get the ingredients and make it fresh. You can go to HelloFresh.com/LockedOn16 and use code LockedOn16 for up to 16 free meals. And you can get 3 free gift. We're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So about the defensive inefficiencies tonight, the Penguins were pretty porous in the defensive zone. That was just really bad stuff. The Penguins making a lot of just ill-advised decisions, I guess is the way to say it. They were lucky, honestly, that Buffalo didn't score 5 or 6 goals in regulation with some of the saves that Casey DeSmith had to make. There's just a lot of, I think, John Marino made a couple really bad decisions. The goal that Tage Thompson actually scored about a minute into the third period, it was mainly, just 2 players behind the net. It was Boyle that didn't really know what he was doing. I think it was also Ruedel. And they just let Thompson come out right in front, and then he's going to fire that pass to Smith, who tried to make a diving save. That's a save that he's probably going to make 1 out of 10 times. There's no reason for 2 players to be behind the net in that situation. I know Boyle is kind of falling on top of Ruedel there. And, speaking of Boyle, I thought he probably had his worst game of the season tonight. He's been a great story. He's impressed a lot of people, but I don't think he can play in the playoffs when this team is fully healthy. I just think, his legs were definitely showing, his old legs, I should say, were definitely showing tonight, at least in my opinion. So, I'm sure he'll be fine on Friday against the Rangers, but that defensive lapse can't happen. Speaking of Marino, I know I pivoted to Boyle a little bit. He should have had an easy clear on Buffalo's second goal from Girgensons, who got his 8th of the year. Oposo basically puts the puck in front of the net, kind of a little bit to the side, a little bit, but the puck, I don't think it hops off Marino's stick. It just goes right by it. And Marino was right freaking there, and he didn't get the clear. Girgensons buries it blocker side past to Smith, and there's nothing Casey can do about that. That's just from 10 feet out. I don't even think Tristan Jarry makes that save, but it was just, I thought, pretty bad defense there from John. He's been playing better hockey for the most part lately. And this was definitely, I think, a step in the wrong direction, in my opinion. We'll see if he's able to correct it on Friday. Brian Dumoulin, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if it's just a full-on regression that we're seeing from him, but this is probably the worst hockey I think I've seen him play in a Penguin uniform. He's not making good decisions with the puck. He's being hemmed in his own zone a lot more. It's almost like he's afraid to get hit just because he's nursing an injury, or, he's obviously, I think, afraid to make a hit as well. But it's definitely just not, it hasn't been there for a while now. I applaud him if he's playing through an injury. I totally get that. But if he's not, maybe you have to sit him for a game or 2 and let him get right. Because this is not the Brian Dumoulin that I think, a lot of us are accustomed to seeing, to say the least. So hopefully that gets cleaned up sooner rather than later. Again, it's just really bad decisions in the defensive zone. It's kind of scared to take any sort of contact. Making bad passes when he's coming into the offensive zone. I think his zone entries per 60 has gone down a little bit. He's not, the same Dumoulin with the puck that I remember from all these years. So I'm hoping, again, that does get corrected here in the stretch run and obviously into the playoffs when the Penguins inevitably do make it. As are some of the other positives. I thought Raquel was awesome tonight. Saved a goal, almost had the highlight goal of the year for the Penguins in overtime, split through the Sabres defense and just missed it past top cheese on Craig Anderson. If that's just a little bit to the left, he brings the house down, and I'm sure a lot of Penguins fans are, including me, obviously I cover the team, are freaking the hell out right now. So really liked his debut, and it's just not his debut, really liked his second game. And the fact that he's playing like this and he hasn't even had a full practice yet, excuse me, he's going to be just fine, at least in my opinion. So I'm definitely really excited to see what else there is to come from him. Kasperi Kapanen, I thought this was another step in the right direction again. I didn't have a problem with anything he did tonight. He got a couple of good chances, was skating with authority, wasn't, coming into the zone and button hooking back and looking for that pass or anything. Played fine defensively too. I don't know if this is a flash in the pan. I don't know if the Penguins are ever going to get back the version that we saw last year from Cappy. But it's the best hockey we've seen him play all year. Not even close, at least in my opinion. Casey DeSmith, I thought he was okay tonight. He's not nearly as bad as he was a couple of months ago. Obviously, that's probably not saying much. But 2 of the 3 goals I'm not really going to blame him for. I thought the first one, that first Tage one, made himself look way too small there. He kind of went down into a butterfly position from what I watched on replay a few times after I saw a goal. There was really no need to do that, I don't think. I think if he just stands up a little taller and makes himself bigger in the net, he has a save there. The second one from Gergensons, again, no shot. Third one, diving across, no chance. In the shootout, though, and I'm going to get to the shootout in the next segment overall from a Penguin skater point of view. I don't really know what he was doing on 2 of those 3 attempts. DeSmith had stopped 10 of his last 11 going into the shootout, which is pretty crazy. He's been a pretty good shootout goaltender for the Penguins this year. He's also stopped 12 of 16 coming into tonight. And this was also, according to Bob Grove, the first time he's allowed more than 1 shootout goal in a game since 2018 when he made his shootout debut. So this is a goalie that usually makes saves, but for whatever reason tonight made himself look way smaller than he normally does. Both Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch had the entire net to shoot. I had a couple people saying to me that, well, Buffalo didn't have to deke and all that stuff. I'm like, well, yeah, again, I'm going to get to the Penguin skater point of view with that. But I'm just like, the Sabres had the entire net to shoot at. So I'm not really going to entertain that argument, at least in my opinion. So kind of maybe a little bit of a mixed bag. I guess he was all right. I don't know how many more starts he's going to get down the stretch here, but he gave them a shot. He was fine. I'm not really going to grill him too hard. This is Tristan Jarry's team at the end of the day. If we're really getting mad about a backup goaltender, then you know what? That's a small problem with only so little of the regular season left. Coming up in the next segment, I am going to get to more shootout struggles for the Penguin skaters and what the heck I think is going on, plus the overtime. But before I get to that, this is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions. I mean, for God's sake, it's almost April now, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, thanks to Built Bar. Almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow in case you haven't tried them. They're fluffy. They are marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They are a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Heck, all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs are included. They're low calorie and high protein. Replace your candy bars with those as well. Heck, they're better than candy bars. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. You can go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So in terms of the actual Penguin shooters tonight in the shootout, and, at the end of the day, this is a very small thing to complain about. I'll just put that as a disclaimer out there for people that think I'm being too hard on team, or maybe I'm being too, I don't know if the word, bitchy, I guess, or just a whiner 49er over here or whatever. But at the end of the day, I want to see more of the Penguins shooters deke in the shootout. Sidney Crosby especially. I know some fans are not going to want to hear this. Trust me. I love Sidney Crosby. I've loved watching him for almost 20 years now. He is awful in shootouts right now, and he has been for a while. I don't think that's a hot take. He absolutely does nothing in the shootouts. You look at the percentage, it's like, oh, wow, he's taken a lot of attempts and he scored a lot of goals. He must be really good. But this year, only 1 of 5, 1 of 6. Last year, it wasn't really that much better. He does the same thing now. Comes in, goes a little slow, tries 5-hole, goes home. He never tries a deke. I just, for once, I want him to try something other than that same annoying move where he comes in, doesn't really do much, and tries to go 5-hole. I think the goalies, when the games go to a shootout, they know what Sid does, to say the least. Brian Rust, I applaud him for doing what he did against Ville Husso last week. I think he was 5 for 5 overall in shootouts coming into this one. He just missed a goal by this much. But still, man, I mean, I just want the players to change it up. I get so bored watching them in shootouts. And, thank God there are no shootouts in the playoffs, because the Penguins have struggled in shootouts so much this year. Usually, this was automatic for the Penguins. Even just a few years ago, there would not be a time where they didn't win in shootouts. And I know at times they had Marc-Andre Fleury, who's the greatest shootout goaltender in NHL history. You look at the stats. I mean, he's a number one. But, that was one of the times when the Penguins actually, I guess, practiced them and took them more serious. I know we don't see a lot more shootouts in the NHL now. And again, as for the dekes thing, I don't really know if the players have some analytics that tell them not to. I don't know. But what I do know is I want to see more of them if we do see another shootout this year and, next year and in a year after that. I think I'm kind of tired of seeing the same thing over and over and over again with this team in the shootout. There's only, and especially, happens with Casey DeSmith making himself look way too small there in those situations. You can't give Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson the whole net to shoot out, as I said in the last segment. That's just unacceptable, to say the least. The overtime was dominated by Pittsburgh. They had the puck basically the entire time. Craig, I understand, had to come up with a couple of massive saves. One of them of which was on Sidney Crosby. Again, I already touched on the Raquel thing. At the end of the day, this is a game that the Penguins, they're gonna throw in their trash. They only had 43% of the shot attempts, 37% of the scoring chances, 29% of the high danger chances, 34% of the expected goals. It was pretty bad. Hell, they got outscored 3-1. If it weren't for the 2 power play goals, Pittsburgh would have lost this game in regulation. So I'm not going to panic. No one else should. It's not the end of the world that they lost this game. They got 3 out of 4 points in this back-to-back. The Penguins have gotten at least a point, actually, in 11 of their last 13 games. They are also 9-2-2 in those last 13 games. So on a roll right now still, 88 points, 8 up on Washington, 3 up on the Rangers. And speaking of the Rangers, I'm going to have Rachel Knowns from the Hockey Writers on the show on Thursday to preview that massive matchup at Madison Square Garden on Friday, because that's probably a playoff preview, I think, at this point, and it's going to, it's going to be a great game. So look for that to come out tomorrow evening. I think we're going to record around 6 or 7 o'clock, and then I'll have a full game recap episode for you all on Friday. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast, and I will be back with you all on Thursday.